Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Mike, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables, sponsored by Analyst Debo. I am Ashley. This is my co-host, Michael Duncan. How are you?
I'm doing dandy. It is a wonderful time to be a Philadelphia sports fan.
Yeah, I know you tweeted that thing out today.
I did, because anyone that thinks New York is actually the sports capital of the world is delusional and a moron.
I don't think we are right now. I think in the past, sure. But now, no, we're not.
Right now, if you thought that, you'd be delusional. When the highlight is that you signed Jalen Brunson to a massive contract. Like, you know, that's not exactly. And I love Jalen Brunson. He's a Philly guy, but, you know, it's not exactly the highlight you're looking for there.
Yeah, and Jake's in the comments. I responded to one of Jake's tweets under yours.
Yes, apparently I'm finally his favorite co-host of this show.
Wow, Jake, really? That's all it took?
Yeah, I've only been friends with him since the 6th grade, you know?
I'm a little bit hurt, honestly.
We take our Philly sports fandom seriously, except for Jake, who isn't actually an Eagles fan, so.
Ew.
I know, he's a Colts fan.
Oh, I knew that.
Yeah.
I did know that.
But it just hurts a little bit when you talk about Philly and stuff, and it's like, well, how much does your opinion really matter, Jake?
Because you don't like the Eagles.
Exactly.
Speaking of Philly, have you watched Abbott Elementary yet?
No.
Duncan.
I've seen the James Harden thing. I want to watch it. The problem is I'm very bad about watching sitcoms like while they're on air and while they come out weekly and stuff, because like I just want to binge the whole thing. Like I was thinking about this. I just restarted Parks and Rec, and
so good.
I wish the world could just I wish people could just film like 8 seasons of a really good sitcom and then put it all out at once.
At once, yep.
Because now I'm just like I'm almost. There's a couple that I haven't seen, but I'm almost out of like those long-term.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love Parks and Rec. I saw a tweet today that was like, Twitter is just a Pawnee town hall. I loved that one.
I've been meaning to rewatch Parks and Rec because I've been going through a lot of those shows and rewatching them as I do constantly.
Yep.
But that's what sparked me to start rewatching Parks and Rec. That tweet. So.
Did you ever see the outtake of when Jerry talks about comeback stories?
Oh, absolutely.
That's one of
the best outtakes in the history of television.
Yep. Yeah. If you haven't seen that, just look up Parks and Rec comeback outtake. I kept saying Rex, and I don't know why.
I know, yeah.
Anyway, let's jump right into it because we do have a lot to talk about today. We're going to do this just a little bit differently. We're still doing our usual stuff, but we're going to talk about the news first and injury reports second. The Buccaneers wide receiver Cole Beasley retires after only playing 2 games for the Buccaneers after he became a free agent in the offseason after being with the Bills. He cites wanting to spend more time with family. And talking about family, Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen have formally hired divorce lawyers, and Tom Brady was absent from practice today. It was said for other reasons. It's also Wednesday, and they did say they were giving Wednesdays off to Tom Brady, so not sure. Blake Bortles has officially announced his retirement from the NFL. The boat.
He's a special quarterback, a special player.
He really is.
I will always love him for what he gave us with Jason Mendoza's character on The Good Place. That is what I will always
love that show. I didn't know you watched that one.
Of course I have. Bortles! As he just throws a Molotov cocktail.
Yep. And I love when they tell him at the end that like Bortles isn't the quarterback anymore, and they were like, he was so sad.
But then he starts screaming Foles, as he should.
He does do that.
Big dick. Anyway.
Bobby Wagner, one of his best tackles of the night, was against an animal rights protester who ran on the field with a pink smoke bomb on Monday night, and Bobby Wagner tackled him. That man later went on to file an assault report with the Santa Clara Police Department.
There's no way that can hold up, right? I know nothing about anything. But...
There is literally one phrase to sum it up, and it's play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
All right, cool. That makes sense.
Enough. OBJ is on what seems to be a world tour. Von Miller says he should be. OBJ was visiting the Giants this week. It was said that he really only came to visit friends and stuff like that, but doing it at the facilities is a weird way to do it. Something a little bit suspect there, considering the Giants only have, I think, 3 active wide receivers on the rosters right now. Giants can't even run a 4-wide set.
Yeah, for him, I don't know why he would actually go there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, especially the way you left, just go see your friends, like, at a club, you know?
Yeah.
You go into the facilities. It's very strange. And then also, I mean, in fake kind of news, Chad Powers, Eli Manning's alter ego, did say he would step up if we needed a quarterback.
I hope he does.
Could you imagine?
But, like, I want him to do it
as Chad Powers.
Yeah. I don't know. Not enough weird stuff like that happens. And I need more of it.
Yes.
I need more of teams just not taking themselves seriously.
I completely agree with you. That's also why, like, I think we've talked about it on here before, like the Savannah Bananas and baseball. Like, they don't take themselves seriously. They don't even play. I watched a video today on some of the rules that they have because they're going on a world tour. And the rules are just awesome. Like, so cool. There's one point that if you walk a player, the pitcher then has to throw it to every person on their team, and the runner can advance as many bases as they'd like until it gets back to the pitcher. That's incredible.
I feel like at this point, it's basically just like the Harlem Globetrotters.
It is 100% what it is.
It's getting there, so.
Yes, but like not taking yourself seriously and do it. I'm all for it. I think you'll get more fans that way. And on a more serious note, and something we very much have to talk about, I know it's not our injury report, it'll lead into it. Tua Tagovailoa. So, as we spoke about last week, Sunday, he got injured against the Bills in what seemed to be a concussion. The doctors allowed him to come back, saying that it was back and ankle issues. Thursday night, he's playing a game against the Bengals in Cincinnati. Tua Tagovailoa exits the game in the second quarter after an extremely, extremely scary injury. Tua was sacked and the back of his head hit the ground. He immediately stiffened up into what's called a fencing position, that he became like very stiff, fingers curled. That's a neurological response to head trauma. He was placed on a backboard, had his neck stabilized, was not moving originally, and immediately brought to a level 1 trauma center, a hospital. He was said to be moving all extremities, had a pretty severe concussion. Tua flies home with the team. Not great. Don't make him fly home with the team. Then his coach also talks about how, what cheered him up was watching shows on his way back if he has a severe concussion. Also, probably shouldn't be publicizing that he was flying home and watching television, because literally one of the biggest rules is avoid screens.
Yep.
So, on Sunday, the doctor who cleared Tua the previous week was fired for citing several mistakes the NFLPA and the NFL said he made. I know several of them were about like arguing with doctors. The team doctors didn't really want to. He said, whatever. I need you to understand that those doctors are in there to protect the players from themselves. That is their job. So if you leave it in the hands of a player, 90% of the time, they are going to want to go back out there. These are competitors. These are people playing for their livelihood. They are there to protect the player from themselves, which they failed at with Tua Tagovailoa. Tua is out right now, is expected to be out for a while. There is no timetable on his return. On Sunday, the NFL fixed a loophole in the concussion protocol. It previously allowed players who exhibit gross motor instability, things like stumbling after a hit, to return to the game. That's now been listed as a no-go, which means if that's spotted, they cannot return. The language hasn't been worked out, which may be why we saw 12 players leave the games on Sunday after new protocol was instilled. And to me, the biggest part of all this is Dr. Bennett Amalu, who is, if you've seen the movie Concussion, you know his name, the one with Will Smith. He's the neuropathologist who was the first person to discover and publish his findings on CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy, in the NFL. He says Tua should retire. He put out a video that I will read to you. It says, if you love your life, your family, love your kids. If you have kids, it's time to gallantly walk away. So find something else to do. Tua, my brother, I love you. I love you as much as I love my son. Stop playing. Stop. Hang up your helmet and gallantly walk away. Sometimes money is not more valuable than human life. $20 billion is not worth your brain. He is not the only doctor that says Tua should retire. Before I get into like my thoughts on this, I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it was just tough to watch. Like, I mean, like you're watching it happen, and you know, obviously the conversation going into this Thursday game is all about Tua. It's a shame because, you know, I like as football fans, we wish the conversation was about like the matchup between Joe Burrow and Tua, and you know, all of the the history behind that matchup, or the great players or the great teams. But it was all about Tua and all about his concussion, and that's the NFL's fault. And then obviously the game starts, and I don't even remember when in the game it happened, but it happened. It happened exactly what everyone feared would happen happened, and that's not just a hit, not just like the kind of thing where it's like you're kind of bracing yourself, you're looking at it, you're like, oh, I hope he gets up, and then he gets up. It's like, no, it's his head hitting the ground forcefully, very hard. And then just one of the most visceral reactions I think I've ever seen on television watching football, like going into, and it, you know, I've read different things or whatever. I'm not an expert on any of this, obviously, but you know, like the fencing position doesn't immediately mean like he's screwed. This is the worst thing that could ever happen. But either way, watching it live, I can't imagine a worse look for the NFL. Like, it's not like this dude just went down, got up, and had a concussion. It's like, no, like it was very obvious and very clear, and it's just it hurt. It took. I don't know how those guys went back out there and played the rest of the game. Oh, it was right before halftime. That's when, because yeah, I watched the guys talk about it at halftime. But like, I don't know how anyone went back out there and played the rest of the game because it was so hard to watch. And then that's all you're thinking about, because this isn't just a normal concussion. It's maybe one of the most talked about concussions in the history of the NFL, which sounds stupid, but like considering how far we've come on the conversation around concussions and head trauma in the past few years, like, I don't know. It was horrifying, to be honest.
Yep. I think the only other discussion that comes close is that one with Antonio Brown.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's the only one that ever sparked. Yes. That's the only one that ever sparked as much discussion as this does. I'm extremely disappointed in everyone involved in the NFL, in the team, in everybody, in the NFLPA, and everyone involved who allowed this to happen. And this is not a freak accident. This is the NFL, right? They have been acknowledging that concussions and CTE are a huge issue within the NFL for years now, and decided to still have loopholes be in there. You have protocols set in place, like I said, that are supposed to be there to protect the player from themselves, and that was not done here. What happened to Tua probably will not happen again because of what it has had to happen.
It'll happen again. It just won't be nearly as obvious.
I exactly. I don't think it'll be anything like what we saw the Sunday, where it was like a clear and obvious concussion and they allowed him back in. And there's been a lot of victim blaming, and it's a weird phrase to use, but with Tua, because, you know, he came back out there on Sunday and he should have just said it was his head. Again, I'll give you the same phrase I keep repeating right now. Players need to be protected from themselves. These kids are playing for their livelihood. They are playing for their passion. This is their dream to be here. They will not give up a second of it. Not if they have a choice in it, which is why they should not have a choice in it. I hope that doctor never finds another job, the one who was fired who had made issues. I am just like so furiously angry. And part of that obviously stems from the fact that I know extensively about head trauma in the NFL. I did all of my undergraduate research into it. But part of it is just from a human perspective. And I have a bone to pick with the broadcasters who kept showing replays of it and who refused to acknowledge the full situation during halftime. I don't remember the guy's name. I tweeted about it. Even one of them said, "This is a part of the game. That's not a time to be saying this. Concussions are a part of this game. That is not a part of this game." I am extremely angry. And
it shouldn't be.
It should, exactly. That's the way that people are arguing in my comments about that too. It happens, but it shouldn't be. There is a culture issue in the NFL surrounding head trauma that needs to be fixed. There's a lot that needs to be fixed here, and I really hope they get their crap together. And that's all. That's all. I mean, that's not all. That was a long time, but you get my point. Stemming off of that, we will jump to the injury report. I did choose to leave in here everybody who did exit Sunday's games and Monday's games with concussions. So for quarterbacks, there were 12 in total. Giants quarterback Daniel Jones left the game with an ankle injury. Giants quarterback Tyrod Taylor came into the game for him and left the game with a concussion. Daniel Jones was kind of forced to return late in the game after they used Saquon Barkley in the quarterback role for a bit. Pretty wild to see. Patriots quarterback Brian Hoyer, who was filling in for Mac Jones, who was injured, suffered a concussion very early on in the game and was replaced with the rookie Bailey Zappi. I already mentioned the issue with Tua Tagovailoa. For running backs, Falcons running back Cordarrelle Patterson has been placed on IR after sustaining a knee injury that needed a procedure. Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley will be splitting time in his absence. Broncos running. Oh, go ahead.
That me and Bailey Zappi have the same birthday.
No, how fun!
Neither did I. I wanted to see. I wanted to see what round he was drafted in, and his birthday is on his Wikipedia. So
interesting. What round was he drafted in?
I didn't find that out.
Oh, you can't say that and not find it out.
I'll find out in a second.
Okay. Do you want me to keep going? Or
the fourth round. He was drafted in the fourth round.
Perfect. Big news. Broncos running back Devonte Williams will be out with the rest of the season with a torn ACL. Later, MRIs also say that he tore his LCL and posterior lateral corner. I don't know. I felt like I have that written down wrong. Either way, it involves several structures, and it's going to be a lengthy recovery for Devonte. Colts running back Jonathan Taylor is still dealing with that ankle injury and is declared out for this week's game against the Broncos, which is tomorrow, so he's short week. Saints running back Alvin Kamara, without any warning, did not play in the London game on Sunday with a rib injury, and fantasy owners are very mad about it.
And they need to just calm the F down. Oh my God.
Right.
Like, very few things have ever pissed me off as much as that's not true. I'm very pissed off almost every single day of my life. But wow, that discourse was just annoying as all heck.
Yep.
Like, good Lord, guys. Just people in London and Australia and all this crap are playing fantasy football year round.
Yep.
Like, shut up.
Yep.
My God. Oh my God. I don't care if you're on the West Coast. You knew the game was happening. Mm-hmm. You knew that Alvin Kamara was questionable. Like, good Lord. You don't deserve special treatment. I'm sorry. If you think that, you should just stop playing fantasy football.
Yeah, I completely agree. On to wide receivers. Bills wide receiver Isaiah McKenzie left the game with a concussion and is in concussion protocol. Bills wide receiver Jamison Crowder sustained a broken ankle and is likely to be placed on IR with it. With both out, there are only 3 wide receivers left on the active roster. As of yesterday, I didn't look at their transactions for today. Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins is dealing with a knee injury. Giants wide receiver Kenny Golladay has a sprained MCL and is expected to miss this week. You wouldn't know he was there in the first place.
I was going to say.
Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks may miss some time. Timeline is still iffy. He was carted off the field on Sunday with turf toe. For tight ends, Buccaneers tight end Cameron Brate left the game with a concussion, and Patriots tight end Jonnu Smith was ruled out with an ankle injury. For offensive linemen, Bears left guard Cody Whitehair got a knee injury and may be placed on IR, which is just to note because the Bears are getting a little bit thin there. Jets right tackle Max Mitchell is expected to go on IR with a knee injury, and he will be the 4th Jets tackle to hit IR this season. Eagles offensive tackle Jordan Mailata suffered a shoulder injury and is expected to be out this week. You guys are elevating someone off of there too, right?
Mailata,
sorry.
And Andre Dillard is eligible to come off IR, but it's unclear whether or not he will this week.
Okay. Yep. And I think a lot of that kind of their injuries are kind of tied together. Giants offensive lineman Evan Neal did not return to the game after he left due to a neck injury. For defense and special teams, Panthers safety Jeremy Chin suffered a hamstring injury and will miss some time. Seahawks outside linebacker Daryl Johnson is out indefinitely after sustaining a, quote, serious foot injury on Sunday. Chargers outside linebacker Joey Bosa elected to have surgery on his groin injury that he was dealing with, and he's been placed on IR. The big one for this is Vikings safety Lewis Seen in the first quarter suffered a serious leg injury, which was later revealed to be a lower leg fracture. He stayed in London to have surgery. He is still there, but expected to be flown home at the end of the week. O'Connell says that the doctors were able to limit any of the post-injury damage that comes with an open wound, which was something he was worried about considering he was the quarterback's coach in Washington when Alex Smith had the compound fracture and later got an infection because of the open wound. I got all of that from Seifert, ESPN. And today's his birthday, so happy birthday, Lewis Seen.
Happy birthday, Lewis.
I was going to say, you better be wishing him a happy birthday. Giants cornerback Aaron Robinson did not return with a knee injury. Eagles cornerback Darius Slay suffered a forearm injury that isn't expected to be serious. And all of these people that I'm going to discuss left the game with a concussion. Colts linebacker Shaquille Leonard, Colts defensive end Tyquan Lewis, Steelers safety Terrell Edmonds, Packers safety Adrian Amos, Broncos safety PJ Locke, Broncos outside linebacker Aaron Patrick, Texans linebacker Blake Cashman, and Giants safety Julian Love. For some good news, the Patriots quarterback Mac Jones has started to practice again in a limited capacity as of today. Bills cornerback Tre'Davious White is able to return from the reserve PUP list. Jaguars wide receiver Zay Jones, after being inactive last week, is expected to play this week. That's from Doug Peterson. Chargers wide receiver Keenan Allen is now day-to-day, but still didn't practice today, so keeping an eye on that one. Commanders running back Brian Robinson could be activated this week, according to Rod Rivera, after getting shot in the preseason. Browns defensive end Myles Garrett is back at practice today following his car accident. And good news-ish, Panthers quarterback Sam Darnold is eligible to return from IR, but Matt Rule says he is not close to returning. So I don't know how you want to take that one. And whatever is happening with Dak Prescott, because we don't really know when he's going to come back, and they keep playing those like Jedi mind tricks that like
Jerry Jones is a moron.
Yeah.
That's really all that needs to be said.
Yeah. So that's my story.
There were a couple injuries this week.
A couple.
There were a few, yeah.
I think it was Kev on Twitter who said something like, we were doing so well, and then the trap door fell out from underneath us with injuries this week, and that's kind of really how it felt. Was that?
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna get into your segment. I can't speak right now.
No, you're having a tough time today.
I know. What is going on? 15-second frenzy. Tell us about.
Normally, you're so well spoken.
I know.
Yeah, 15-second frenzy is where I take 15 seconds to talk about every game in the NFL this past week. I tell you what I think you need to know or what I want you to know, and I spend 15 seconds on every game. Ashley times me, and then we're done.
I do. And my favorite thing you've said was he doesn't even have to tell you who won or lost.
I don't. I do whatever I want.
Yeah. Anyway, we are going to jump into it. I will count you down with my little stopwatch. 3, 2, 1.
Dolphins versus Bengals. Wow, the NFL screwed up with Tua. We already talked plenty about that. But on the bright side, the Bengals are finding their mojo, even if their head coach is terrible and awful at game managing and calling plays and everything else a head coach should be good at.
Next.
Vikings versus Saints. Justin Jefferson on the rebound after a rough couple of weeks since week 1. Andy Dalton versus Kirk is actually the only repeat matchup for quarterbacks in London history, apparently. And I do believe that officially London games are the opposite of prime time for Kirk. He does much better because they're early in the morning. Also, lazy fantasy people hate Alvin Kamara. Browns versus Falcons. Mariota completed 7 passes in a game that they won. 3 different running backs were used in the game, especially after Cordell Patterson was injured. It's really unclear how good or bad of a team Cleveland actually is because they're 2-2 with very weird wins and losses. The Commanders versus the Cowboys. Cooper Rush is 3-0. Washington is the only team in the NFC East without a winning record. And they've also never in their rich history beaten an NFC East team in a game. CeeDee Lamb is getting back on track, and I'm wondering if that is a Cooper Rush thing. Seahawks versus the Lions, the 14th highest scoring game of all time. The Lions did it without the majority of their starting offensive weapons. Is Geno better than Russ? That's a conversation. Are the Seahawks better than we give them credit for? Probably, yeah. And Penny and Williams ran all over each other. That doesn't sound right. Titans versus the Colts. Titans are starting to find their stride at 2-2. Henry is looking like himself again, which really just makes the whole offense work better. And the Colts still don't look good. They might not just be a good team. I think they're horrible. Bears versus Giants. Whoever won this game would probably end up being the worst 3-1 team of all time, but handed to the Giants, who did it without a quarterback for most of the game. And I am including the time that Daniel Jones was playing. Saquon continues his comeback tour with 31 rushes for 146 yards. Jags versus Eagles. Doug Peterson got a huge ovation in his return. The Eagles proved that they are resilient while actually facing some sort of deficit so far this season, going down 14-0. Trevor Lawrence had 5 fumbles in the rain. That's bad. And the Eagles also overcame injuries for the first time this season. Jets versus Steelers. Kenny Pickett sighting, but also Zach Wilson still won. And now Pickett has a terrifying 4-game stretch to start his career, which was horrible planning by Mike Tomlin. Meanwhile, Breece Hall has arrived on the scene, as has George Pickens. It ended up being a huge game for rookies in the NFL. The Bills versus the Ravens. Lamar fell back down to earth in a close game between 2 of the better teams in the AFC. The Bills didn't exactly do great on offense, all things considered, when you look at a very, very weak Ravens defense, but ended up being a close game coming down to a questionable decision by John Harbaugh near the end of the game. Chargers versus the Texans. Austin Eckler has finally showed up. Thank God. He is here to play football this season. Damian Pierce, another big week for a rookie. He had a great game on the ground for the Texans. And they just are going to be this way all season. They're never going to win a game, but they're going to be in every single one. The Patriots versus the Packers. One of the most egregious non-delay of game calls that I have ever seen. It felt like 9 seconds after the clock hit 0. And even worse, it resulted in a Patriots touchdown, which helped them stay in the game. Thankfully, the Packers still brought it out. The Cardinals versus the Panthers. The Panthers are horrible, and any team that lets them be in a game against them might be worse, and that team being the Cardinals. Watching either of these teams feels like an absolute punishment, and both at the same time feels a lot worse. Broncos versus Raiders. Raiders finally got their first W of the season, and the Broncos go another week without looking anything like a stable NFL team, let alone one with all of the hype and hoopla they got this offseason. Russ started to look kind of better, but Derek Carr, I guess, outplayed him, but really Josh Jacobs was the only person that mattered here. Chiefs versus Buccaneers. This was a Super Bowl revenge game. Andy Mahomes said, screw you, we're just going to score, and score, as they went out to a very early lead and just did not let off the gas, even if the end result looked closer than most of the game actually was. Finally, the Rams versus the Niners. Speaking of not looking right, I didn't actually get to that part in the Buccaneers thing, so that doesn't work as well. The Bucs don't look right. The Rams also don't look right. They look horrible for a defending Super Bowl champion. Their defense is okay, but their offense is a mess. Stafford, something isn't right, and I don't know if they're ever really going to look good this season.
And done. Yeah, I let you go over like once or twice because I forgot I was recording, like recording the time, and then so it was only like by a second or two. I wanted to say something I don't remember because every time you do this, there's something like right at the start that I'm like, oh, I meant to talk about that, and then we forget to talk about it. I did want to talk about that thing I sent you about the Ravens, though. Let me pull it up.
I already forget what you sent me about the Ravens.
I know, so that's why I will pull it up. So the 2-2 Baltimore Ravens have trailed for a total of 14 seconds in their 2 losses this season.
Yeah, that's wild.
Wild. That's crazy. Do you want to talk a little bit about what Harbaugh said?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me though.
Sorry, I do this sometimes.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Okay.
Let's talk about something in the meantime.
Yeah. Let's see.
I
thought you said let's, and I was like, okay. I can talk about another tweet I sent you, which says it was from Ari Mirov, who says the wow stat in the NFL. There is a wide receiver in the NFL who has more receptions through 4 games than a starting QB has completions, and Cooper Kupp has 42 receptions, and Justin Fields has 34 completions.
Yeah, I actually had that in my frenzy, and I didn't get to it.
Yeah.
But I do have the thing.
Okay.
So Harbaugh has no regrets. This is what he was quoted saying. I feel the same way as I felt during the game and after the game. I trust our players implicitly in everything. As a coach, I trust our offense to make plays and extend leads and all that, and I trust our defense to get stops, and I trust our special teams to make plays and flip field positions. So you start with that. That's what you always do. I think with that goes the obligation that the players trust me too. They trust the coach. They trust the coaches to put them in the best possible position to win the game, whatever that may be. It's not about a coach making a quote-unquote safe decision. I have no clue if that's the quote you were talking about.
I was more so talking about the one why he kicked it. Why he didn't kick it.
Well, I'm going to have to find that.
I know it was something about, like, you know, the odds of us being able to score were better than kicking a field goal, giving the ball away, getting it back, and scoring. Something along those lines. And I just wanted to bring it up because I wanted to see how you felt with it compared to...
I got it.
What happened earlier in the season. Got it.
I felt like it gave us the best chance to win the game because 7 points. The worst that happens if they go down the field and score. And I think we'll get them stopped. But if they go down the field and score a touchdown, the worst thing that can happen is that you're in overtime. So I think that's what you meant, right?
Yes. So
Great.
I wanted to talk about it in comparison with what happened to the Broncos earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Because I know you had very strong feelings about the Broncos. I want to know if you have strong feelings about this.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand what Brad. You got to call that ref delay of game.
I think it was delay of game because it was either because I didn't call that you went over
okay.
or that you were looking something up. And
I get it.
Yeah.
That was clever, Brad.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So the decision. I personally am almost never going to fault a head coach for making that kind of decision because I don't know. Like there was some discourse about it, like on Twitter. Torrey Smith was one of the people that actually came out and said like it was a good decision. And I think of it this way: like the reason the Eagles won the Super Bowl back in 2017, and Doug Peterson was one of the foremost people to be into this aggressive, going for it on 4th down type of mindset, not just settling for a field goal. Jimmy Kempski had a great article that season where he actually tallied up how many points the Eagles ended up gaining on the season strictly based on calls that he chose to go for it on 4th down. Like they ended up gaining like over 100 points that they would not have gotten if they had taken field goals or whatever over the course of a whole season. I think that aggression is good, and I think your defense has done nothing to gain your trust this season. They've been miserable, really. They've been horrible. And on top of that, the Bills are one of the best offenses in the league. I personally have no reason to believe that if the Ravens kicked a field goal, that the Bills would not just immediately drive down the field and score a touchdown. I personally, I love the decision. Yeah, it didn't work out. But if that decision worked out, everyone would be praising it. It's one of those decisions, and this time it didn't work out, but I agree with that mindset. Maybe it's something a little bit different in the playoffs, maybe. But again, the Eagles did that kind of thing in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And honestly, I think if there was a single time that they chose to take the points instead of going for a manageable 4th down, I don't think they win the Super Bowl. So I back John Harbaugh on that decision. I agree with that decision.
I completely agree with you. I just wanted to bring it up because I know we've been talking about coaches' decisions throughout the season so far, and some of them questionable, some of them understandable. It's very similar to the conversation we had with the Giants in game 1 that they went for it on 4th down, scored, and that's the same thing, but just working out. And I think I completely agree with you that if the Ravens defense was not as banged up and down bad as it is currently, maybe take the points. But there's no reason to have faith in that defense to stop it.
Yeah,
I do remember something I was going to say.
Why wouldn't you rather put the ball in Lamar's hands versus your defense? That's what it comes down to for me. So
yep, I completely agree. I do remember something that I was going to say about the London games. The Giants and the Packers are in London this week. Is the first time that the two teams have a winning record.
I had that in my frenzy too, and I forgot to say it. Yeah.
That's the issue with the frenzy. So much to talk about. So little time.
Yeah, it is kind of funny though that's the first game.
Right. And it's the Giants.
Yeah, it's just like we send like really crappy games over there apparently.
Yeah, we do.
But yeah, I've always found it really funny when we send the Patriots.
Yeah.
That just feels like a slap in the face to me. Like they're literally called the New England Patriots. Everything about that just sounds mean. But whatever.
Yeah. Did you see there was a no call in the Saints game that was pretty bad. Did you see there was a tweet about it that was like, it wasn't called because they were hired before the Queen died, and the Queen looks like and Andy Dalton looks like the Queen's grandkids.
Clever.
It's pretty fun.
I did not see much of that game. I spent all of Sunday morning traveling because I ended up getting last minute tickets to the Eagles game. I had a pre-game sideline pass, and I was in a suite, like a box, for the game. So that was pretty cool.
I know. Big come-ups over there.
Yeah, I got a bunch of free food.
I know. That's the best thing about boxes.
Yeah. I was treasuring it because I don't know any rich people, so probably not going to happen again anytime soon.
I've only been in a box once, and it was for a Red Sox game, and it happened the same way that someone's like, "Do you want our seats?" They're in a box. We were like, "Let's do it." Free food, free drinks. It was awesome.
I did. So the dude that had the box is like a client of my friend's mother, and apparently I was very entertaining because I was screaming my head off in the box as if I was, watching a game.
So since he found you entertaining, you should ask him if he could do that again for you for Giants Eagles.
Well, I did say that I told my friend's mom that if he ever to give him my contact information and say if he ever has any extra tickets, he could invite me.
Yeah, and you should definitely say, especially if he has 2 seats for the Giants Eagles game.
I promise absolutely nothing.
Oh, you can promise you'll try.
I don't promise that I'll try.
Why?
Because I don't want to ask someone for a specific game. I'm talking, if he ever has one single extra ticket, I will sit in that box with people that I do not know because I get free food, free parking, and a free ticket. So I'm going to take what I can get. Beggars cannot be choosers, and I will be a beggar.
I'm going to ask something that will tell me how good the Eagles Stadium is. Did the bathroom in the box have a TV in it?
No, it had radio going on.
Oh, okay. Good enough.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Yeah.
Let me look through this real quick before we jump onto our... we only have 20 minutes left. Let's jump into our next segment.
What were you going to look through?
I was going to look through our tweets because we share so many tweets with so many interesting fun facts, and we never get to talk about them. I feel like we need a fun fact segment.
Oh, yeah. We just need to start thinking about it before we actually...
I know. We do this every week.
Yeah. Well, here's my favorite.
Okay.
The Saints own the 4th overall pick in the NFL draft, except they don't. The Eagles do.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles are the last undefeated team in the NFL.
Yeah.
So.
It's a tough one. Tough one for the Saints.
I like it.
Yeah. Either way, we are going to jump into a segment which I decided to call Is It Paying Off? It is Duncan's idea, my name. We are going to look at the biggest offseason contracts and see how those players are playing out through week 4.
Yeah. So, the reason I was thinking about this was mainly, what was it? There was a specific player that prompted the thought process, and I don't remember who it was. But yeah. So basically, we're just going to look at, how do you think these teams are feeling? And I think we're going to go a little bit out of order here. I want to start with AJ Brown because I think we can get through it quickly because I think it's obvious. He signed after getting traded to the Eagles. He signed a 4-year, $100 million deal with $71 million guaranteed. Yeah, I mean, yes, the Eagles are very happy that they did that. The dude is showing out. He's on pace for over 1,500 yards receiving on the season. He had a very quiet 95-yard receiving game this past week, which I think says a lot because he had a quiet 95 yards. Yeah, I mean, it's unlocked parts of the offense that weren't there last season. Jalen Hurts is throwing over the middle in ways that he never has in his NFL career, and AJ Brown is just making ridiculous plays after ridiculous plays, even in games where Devonte Smith is, the 1A or whatever. Like the Eagles have 2 number 1 receivers, and even when AJ Brown is the 1B in a given game, he's still showing out. So he's young, he's talented, he's already proven it. Like there's no reason to be upset about that contract if you're the Eagles.
Yeah, I was looking at the PFF premium stats and his receiving grades in specific depths, and he has a 92.6 receiving grade for things that are over 20 yards. In medium 10 to 19 he has a 95.2. In short 0 to 9 yards he has 95.9 player grades. That's crazy.
He is very good at football. And yep, I really like having him on the Eagles.
I do. You did mention what his contract was?
Yeah. 4-year, $100 million.
Okay, awesome. I don't really have much else to add. That was probably one of
me when I talk.
The best. I was making sure I had the stats that I wanted. Yeah, you're the Eagles guy. I don't really have much else to add other than I hate it, but it's great for the organization. I just hate it because it's in the NFC East. Next.
Yeah, so now we'll go back to what I think was the largest quarterback contract given out this offseason. I think, if I remember correctly, this happened like right before the season started, like almost kind of quietly for this kind of like extension. But yeah, that's Russell Wilson, who signed a 5-year, $245 million contract with $165 million guaranteed with the Denver Broncos. Obviously, after trading for him during the offseason. How do you think Broncos faithful are feeling right about now, 4 weeks into the season?
I think I can sum it up in one word for you. Ready?
Yes.
You have to say yes. Boo. That's it. That's how they feel. They hate it. They boo him every chance they get. He stinks. And maybe the Seahawks had the right idea. That's how I feel.
I mean, it's hilarious that Geno Smith is outplaying him. It is hysterical.
It really is.
It's also like, it's scary. Like Russell Wilson has just been, I think, one of the most consistent quarterbacks maybe to ever play the game for the first, for every season that he's played the game up until last year, really.
Yeah.
He suffered his first injury. He missed the first game of his career last season. And since then, like, he hasn't been the same. And I don't know if it's the injury. I don't know if it's Nathaniel Hackett. I don't know if it's the fact that it's the first time in his career that he's playing in a new system.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I've said many times, Nathaniel Hackett, I do not think is a good head coach. Honestly, I would fire him. I would not even play around. I think he was hired purely to lure Aaron Rodgers to Denver, and when that didn't happen, Russell Wilson became the backup plan. I don't know what the issue is in Denver. I don't know if it's Russ. I don't know if it's Hackett. I don't know if it's both, but Russ does not look like the Russ that we would have been okay with having signed a contract that big. But that's 5 years, and he's already in his 30s, and he's already looking this poor. Like, this could really go downhill very, very quickly. And the reason I wanted to do that this week is because we're about a quarter of the way through the season, and obviously this stuff is not etched in stone. Like, a lot of there's still time for plenty of this to change. But I think this is an important time. Like, this is around the time of the season. A lot of, like, I think within the next month or two, like, we'll see other contract extensions happening. Like, teams do make decisions on players and how they feel about them and their future around this part of the season.
Yeah. Same with coaches too.
Yeah.
This is when you start to hear buzz about coaches, being on the chopping block, or, start looking for coaches to replace if you decide to get rid of your coach. This is a crucial time. How you play in the first is usually pretty telling. Yeah. I think for me, is the fan base, all of us who watch the NFL, I think we put a lot of faith in Russell Wilson and overlooked the fact that it's a brand new coaching staff from like stem to stern.
There's no one on that coaching staff that has previously held their current position.
Exactly.
If I remember correctly.
So it just kind of feels like the whole thing is like a scrimmage that they're all practicing, like that's what it feels like, that they're all practicing or like playing pretend as the head coach and the offensive coordinator. And I don't know. I think I understand why Russ isn't playing great, but I still think he should be playing better than he's playing.
Yeah, I think there is a serious conversation to be had about whether or not he is starting to go downwards in his career, because this is like the weapons that he has on that offense and the team that he has. I'm not saying coaching shouldn't matter, but he should be like, he's not making routine plays. He's not doing things that we've seen him do thousands of times. So,
who's their backup quarterback? Brett Rypien.
Drew Lock.
Don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
Brett Rypien. Never heard of him before until right this second.
I've heard the name. I don't remember where I know him from.
He is 26, went to Boise State. It's his third season. Anyway, yep. Next.
Why did you just sing third season?
I don't know. I've been singing a lot of things lately, to be honest. I just honestly forgot I even sang it. So.
Okay.
On to the next.
Yeah, so another wide receiver here, Debo Samuel. He signed a 3-year, $73.5 million contract with $58.1 million guaranteed. There was obviously some things in there that had to do with him playing running back, which he's done a decent amount this season. But yeah, obviously, after this past week and the insane plays that he had on Monday Night Football. I lean toward they are not regretting it at all. He had a bit of a slow start to the season, but
so did the 49ers as a whole.
Exactly. Yeah. The Trey Lance thing made it tough because, rain and then injury and then Jimmy G. And here we are. They're beginning to figure it out. I don't think Jimmy G was particularly good on Monday night, but like Debo was back to his old stuff. Like he looked like Debo, and he's one of the most versatile, if not the most versatile player in the entire NFL.
Yeah. I'll give him one of the most dynamic players too.
Absolutely. I mean, yards after the catch. Oh, there was a stat. I wish I remembered what it was. I wanted to write it down and I forgot. But on Monday Night Football about like what he's averaging in yards after the catch, and it's just ridiculous. Like he's just so fun to watch with the football. And this is gonna sound weird. The shape of his body is so unlike other wide receivers. It's so funny watching him play because like he almost like with how stocky and built he is, he almost looks like he's like out of shape.
Yeah.
But like, no, he's just like muscle in weird places for a typical NFL wide receiver. But yeah, he's thankfully avoided a lot of the injury issues that plagued him early in his career. And that obviously, makes you feel better.
Yeah. He is, I believe this year, if I'm reading this correctly, has 195 yards after the catch. Something like that. I feel like that's really low. Maybe that's like average. I mean,
in 4 games, like that's not a bad yard after the catch at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think almost 50 yards after the catch.
I think my brain's just confusing it because I feel like I heard something that he had like 100 yards after the catch on Monday, but I don't know. I could have made that up. Very possible. I don't know. I give that signing my stamp of approval.
I agree. And next
also,
up,
what? Really quickly, because I need to speak about this with somebody, and we might as well do it here.
Okay.
I've been listening to some NFL radio on SiriusXM. Do you want to know what one of the callers said today?
No.
That they want to completely fire Jimmy G and ask Ryan Fitzmagic to come out of retirement.
I have nothing to say to that.
Right? I just had to say it because listening to that show is hilarious at most times, and that's one of them.
See, that's Philly sports radio there. Like that, the fact that someone called in and said that does not surprise me, but I also know that most places in the country don't have Philly talk radio.
Yep.
So I'm used to hearing there's a great Twitter account called Fake WIP Caller. WIP is one of the main sports talk radios around here. And the things they tweet during the games are just absolutely incredible because it literally I don't know. Just go check it out. And like, if you read those tweets, especially with the context giving of like what's happening in a game at the time or something, like that is exactly how it feels listening to sports talk radio in Philly. Like it nails it to a T.
Yeah. There was a guy yesterday on the radio who said, why is Russell Wilson getting paid this money? Understandable question. Except he then talked about how he should be making that money. And then proceeded to say he's a 50-year-old drunk man. And then the people on the radio were like, why do you think you should get that much money?
I wish I could have that much money.
He was like, I didn't say that. And then he definitely said it. But it's very entertaining. This is a promotion for free promotion for NFL radio on
Hashtag not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor.
Speaking of lots of millions of dollars, Christian Kirk is our next guy. So he signed a 4-year, $84 million contract worth $52.5 million in guarantees. This was one over the offseason that I defended vehemently. Especially
vehemently.
Whatever. I was trying my best. Vehemently. And honestly, I stand behind it. Him and Zay Jones, both bigger contracts, and I think a lot of people thought have been awesome for the Jaguars. Rain game excluded. But Christian Kirk in particular has just been really, really, really good for the Jaguars. Like, is he getting overpaid? Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But when you have to pay extra money to get someone to come to Jacksonville, like that's what's going to happen. And Trevor Lawrence has looked like a legitimate NFL quarterback and looked a lot more the part of the former number 1 overall pick. And that was my argument all along this offseason, was that if you want him to look like that, you cannot just surround him with borderline NFL starting wide receivers. Like Christian Kirk, maybe he's not worth that money. He is a starting NFL wide receiver. Absolutely no question about it. No, like it's true. You have to be able to I am all for players being able to make their teams better and like the players around them better, quarterbacks making their wide receivers better. But like Trevor Lawrence is in the 2nd year of his career.
Yeah.
He needs to get better before he can do things like that. Like you didn't see Peyton Manning or Tom Brady doing that early in their careers. It took time for them to get there. And even then it's like they still had NFL talent at wide receiver. Like if you don't have NFL talent at wide receiver, basically no one is going to be able to succeed, let alone get better and grow and feel like they can handle the NFL game. I thought this was a necessary signing. And I think, honestly, so far he's come a lot closer to being worth that amount of money.
Yep. I completely agree.
Yeah.
His contract set the wide receiver market really high, which is why we saw one of the craziest wide receiver markets we've seen in an NFL offseason. And part of that is because of Christian Kirk. But it's working well, which should just give it the stamp of approval right now. Like, I understand it's a lot of money. In the long run, it may not be sustainable. But right now, it's working, and that's what they needed for Trevor Lawrence. They needed somebody who could help right now. Poor Trevor Lawrence has been through so much.
Look at Justin Fields.
Yeah.
It's not about getting bang for your buck.
Exactly.
That's not what it's about. It's not about winning that contract. It is about Trevor Lawrence playing with NFL wide receivers. It's literally that simple.
You're paying Trevor Lawrence, but he's still on a rookie contract. So spend the money. And get him some receivers, get him some people who could really help. I mean, we could jump into stats for him. He struggles against harder defenses, which should be expected for a wide receiver. He's not been great at run blocking, but who cares? He's getting receptions. He's helping Trevor Lawrence. The Jaguars won a game. Wow.
They've won a couple games.
That's what I meant, but won more than one game. So new era, not under Urban Meyer, and I just support it because if they're just helping Trevor Lawrence, and then I think it's worth the money, even if it's just worth a shot in the dark.
I agree.
Perfect.
And next up at wide receivers, we have one of the best in the league, Devonte Adams, signed a 5-year, $141 million deal with $65 roughly million in guarantee. And paired with that is Derek Carr also signed an extension worth 3 years, $121 million and $65 million guaranteed as well. You had some thoughts about this, so what do you think?
I did. I don't know if it's because The team is struggling as a whole. And I think this is another one that could be just roped into an organization that's in the middle of so much change. But I don't even know. I feel, do you have Derek Carr's like year stats pulled up by any chance? Or could you pull
I don't
them up?
know why I would have them pulled up already.
Well, like as we do this, I've been pulling up people's stats.
I mean, he has a 61% completion rate. He has a little over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a rating of 83.2 quarterback rating on the season so far.
Yeah, I don't really think that's worth that much money. I think he's playing fine, and I think because he's playing fine, Devonte Adams playing fine. It's not winning them any games, and even though Devonte Adams is like producing enough, it's not great, and they're not winning games, which I don't know if it's worth it to have paid for 2 star players to like not be winning games. Like you paid a lot of money for it, and I understand that's hindsight being 2020, but it just feels like this is not the Devonte Adams we know. And I haven't seen like and Devonte Adams every week used to be like a top 5 spot on ESPN's top 15, whatever they do, at the end of the week. And he just doesn't feel like that anymore. And I don't know if it's because of mismanagement. I don't know if it's just because there's not as much of a connection as they hoped there would be between 2 former college roommates, I think. So I don't know. At this point, I still don't feel like it was worth it. But again, the entire offense kind of stinks. Darren Waller's not producing. No one's really producing. So it could just be that it's an organization change.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some growing pains in the new offensive system, and obviously, like Devonte Adams for the first time in his career is not playing with Aaron Rodgers. He's been inconsistent but good when like his good games have been good, his bad games have been bad. And for me, like I understand the contract signing in like for both of them, because I think if you go and you trade for Devonte Adams, like you're not doing that with the intention of drafting a high quarterback and building for the future. Like you're trying to win in the next couple of years. Like, and I think Derek Carr is not, he's not Aaron Rodgers, but I think he's one of those borderline like Kirk Cousins you can win with type, especially if you give him Devonte Adams and a good surrounding cast. And in that way, I get why you just want to lock it down. Like you want to lock down Derek Carr, you want to lock down Devonte Adams. I think that makes them both happy. I think Devonte Adams wanted to be there, like, and he chose to be there over being with Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know. I'm not a huge Derek Carr fan, but I'll defend the decision in the way that I understand their thought process, and I don't
and I do too.
I don't think it was a bad process given what you have. Like I think I would rather them do that than do what the Titans are doing, which is they have no clue what direction they're going in.
Exactly. And that's the thing is like I still support those contracts. I'm not saying they should not have done that. I just at this time don't know if it's like they're getting their money's worth. That's kind of what my thing is. I still think that is a connection that could grow and by the end of the season be one of the best ones in the NFL, because there is so much potential, and for Devonte Adams and Derek Carr has potential. So there's room for improvement with them. And I think it was a good signing at the time, just not paying off as much as I had hoped by this point.
I can agree with that.
Yep.
And then finally, one of the most interesting, maybe most surprising contracts of the offseason was a 6-year contract given out to free agent Von Miller for $120 million, but with only $51 million guaranteed, which is obviously a very important part of that equation with the Buffalo Bills. And obviously, I think he made himself known on that opening Thursday night game against the Rams, where he had 2 sacks, 4 tackles. He looked great, and he was part of the reason that they just dominated that game. Since then, he's only had 1 sack on the season. He had 1 against the Ravens, so he's got 3 on the season through 4 games. What are your thoughts?
Amazing. Like, that is one of the best things they could have used. He is a complete game changer. Has 10 QB hurries, 3 sacks, 7 stops, 4 solo tackles, 14 total pressures, 1 QB hit through 4 games. that's great, and he is a complete playmaker and game changer, and I think that's what the Bills needed on that side of the ball, because they have it on offense, and for their defense was strong, but still had some weak areas, and I think adding someone like Von Miller doesn't even just add on the field presence, it adds leadership, it adds seniority to the locker room, and I think he has been a key role in transforming that defense to be a lot stronger than they were last season.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I mean, the thing that when we were talking about storylines we were interested in watching this season, like that's what I picked for the Bills was specifically Von Miller and how he affects that defense. It was already really good last season, but the thing that they struggled in was sacks, hurries, getting to the quarterback, and I mean, he's made a massive difference, and it's a lot of money and a lot of years. But I think the reality is it's a much more stomachable contract when you just look at the guaranteed money. And honestly, like with the way they're playing and what their aspirations and goals are, which are a Super Bowl, like there's not a lot to be upset about, because I agree. It also brings a certain amount of just awareness to what it takes to win a Super Bowl, what it takes to have playoff success, which that team has had some playoff success, but Von Miller has won 2 Super Bowls. As a part of 2 very good defenses. So, and been crucial in both of the Super Bowls. It's not like he was just there and to collect a ring. He was crucial. Yeah, he won MVP and then had a very, very good performance in the second one. Exactly. So you get the Bills to the Super Bowl, and now you have a player who's been there before and can give a good pep talk during it. It's more than that, but you know what I'm saying. Like, very well tell them Ashley. What to expect. Give a good pep talk. That's why we're paying him all the money. Give some good pep talks. But yeah, I think that's probably one of the ones that's paying off the most as of right now, especially like you said with the Bills' aspirations, because this is a team that could go on to win, at least on paper, looks like a team that could go on to win several Super Bowls. And a signing like that makes sense if a long-term signing like that makes sense if that's what your goals are. And obviously those are the goals for everyone in the NFL, but this is a team that could achieve it. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, we're running a little bit over. Duncan, why don't you start leading us out by telling us where we can find you? You can find me not in a box for any future Eagles games, most likely, because I don't get the feeling that he will be inviting me back. Unless he does, in which case that's where you can find me. Did you tell him about the podcast? I did not. I barely spoke to him. I didn't talk to him a ton. But you can find me on Twitter at mpduncan75. You can find me here Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And you can find me producing the Undrafted podcast hosted by Jax Falcone at Dino Game Theory on Twitter. And on the Undroppables Patreon. Oh, yeah. And Under the Wire on Sunday. Thank you. On Sunday mornings on the FF Chat Discord. With Derek, fellow Undroppable, where we help you from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time with your start-sit decisions before a long day of fantasy football. So, yeah. Perfect. And you can find me on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's and Ashley. All of my content is with the Undroppables. I will also be here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But you can also listen back on wherever you stream your podcasts. If you do stream your podcasts, please make sure to give us a good review on Apple or Spotify. I think you can only do it on Apple Podcasts. And you can find me, Duncan, and the rest of the Undroppables crew on the Undroppables premium Discord channels, which you can gain access to by becoming a patron at patreon.com/theundroppables. There you can get all, a trade advice, start-sit advice. We have people who are good at offensive lines and betting and basically everything you can be good at in the world of football and fantasy football. We have someone there for it. So if you have a few extra dollars a month, please do come join us on the premium Discord channels. But that'll wrap it up for today. We have an exciting week of football ahead. I hope you all enjoy it very much, and we hope to see you back here next week. Bye, everyone. Bye.